Are you sick and tired of being passed around from one doctor to the next without any improvements or answers as to why you feel the way that you do? Well, then you, like many others, may have wondered to yourself, how do you know if you have a food sensitivity? Well, you're in luck because that is exactly the question I'm answering in today's video. So let's jump right on in. Hi, I'm Dr. Kelly, doctor of cause, chiropractic, board certified in sports medicine, and highly specialized in clinical nutrition. In this video, we're going to cover the number one reason why most people have no idea they're suffering from food sensitivities and how you don't have to be one of them. Then we're going to go over the top indicators that can suggest that you actually are suffering currently from a food sensitivity. And then finally, I'm going to be answering the question, is food sensitivity testing actually worth it? Let's get started, guys. Number one, the number one reason why people have no idea they're suffering with food sensitivities is because your body doesn't respond the way that it would if it was an actual allergy problem. Let me illustrate this, okay? So your allergic reactions, those happen immediately. You know, the anaphylactic type of reactions that people have where they're at risk of dying because their throat's closing up, things are swelling, that happens immediately. Other reactions that are along the lines of allergies is like when you go outside and there's things in the environment and the next thing you know, you can't breathe, your eyes are watering, you might have a scratchy throat, eyes are itching. Those are all immediate presentations. They happen instantly. With food sensitivities, it's different. It's delayed. Your reaction cannot show up for at least 3 days. I've even seen somewhere reported in research that food sensitivity symptoms or reactions may not even present until 2 weeks later. No wonder you're having a hard time pinpointing if you're reacting to anything. You could have days go by and consume lots of different types of foods before you actually feel the way that you do and have no idea what actually triggered it. I'm curious, did you have any idea that food sensitivity reactions were delayed like that? I mean, up to almost 2 weeks? That's crazy. Makes sense why you may be struggling trying to pinpoint what it is you're reacting to. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Go ahead and comment down below and let me know what you think. Okay, let's get into tip number 2, the top indicators that you may be suffering from a food sensitivity. Now, one of the other things that makes food sensitivities, fly beneath the radar compared to your classic allergic type of reactions is because your symptoms are varied. Your classic reactions most of the time, for allergies is like the sinus in the eyes and some of the throat stuff. With food sensitivities, it's pretty much anything under the sun. You could have gut problems, which, can manifest as bloating and gas and maybe even constipation or diarrhea, or you may actually be dealing with brain fog or a migraine headache, or you may get really achy joints. You may just realize that no matter how hard you're trying, you can't lose weight for the life of you. All of these could be potential signs that you're dealing with food sensitivity type of a problem. I want to share a little story with you. I was a sick kid growing up. I had chronic sinus problems and I had digestive issues and I had not just classic like teenage pimple stuff. When I would get like a zit or whatever on my face, if I messed with it at all, it almost it seemed as though I had acid coming from my skin because it would turn into this like big weeping wound. It never looked like classic acne as a teenager. And back then I had gone to all kinds of different doctors trying to figure out what was actually causing my sinus problems and why was I on medication still without getting any benefit whatsoever. And it wasn't until I went to a chiropractor, my very first one, and he didn't just do, adjustments. He asked me all kinds of different questions to try to figure out why I was actually still dealing with these chronic sinus problems. Even questions like, how were you born? C-section or, vaginally? I'm like, what does that have to do with my sinuses? Well, long story short, one of the other factors that we evaluated was food sensitivities. And what I figured out back then is I was sensitive to like everything under the sun, and what I was consuming on a regular basis was stressing my body and was part of why I was continuing to have these sinus issues. So back then, one of the items that I was sensitive to is gluten. Now, I am still sensitive to gluten today, and that's okay. I know how to live life without gluten. It's really not that hard. There's plenty to eat. But now if I have, by accident, or if I choose to have something that has gluten in it, I'm going to pay a price. The thing that's interesting about food sensitivities is once you go away from them, like you give your body a break from being exposed to something that's irritating, it allows your body to heal. And as your body's healing, it turns up the volume of your alert system. So now if you come across something that you're still sensitive to, you are actually going to have a more immediate type of a reaction versus this delayed presentation, as we're trying to figure out what is it that you're reacting to. So now, if I have gluten, I don't get your classic gut type of symptoms that a lot of people do. And I have a lot of people that come into my office and they're like, I don't have issues with gluten. My stomach's just fine. Everything about my digestive system is fine. but they're dealing with brain fog and anxiety and depression or, lack of focus and concentration. It's like, maybe you are, or maybe you're not having issues with gluten. My immediate reaction that I get now is a migraine-like headache. And it can last for a while, and I can wake up the next day and be achy all over as a result of just having something, even a minor little serving of gluten. I'm not celiac, but I am very reactive to gluten. So I choose not to have it in my world. Okay. So that is one of the things that is very interesting about food sensitivities. Their presentation is totally different than allergies. So hopefully that's shed a little bit of light, if you're having different brain related types of symptoms. So focus, concentration problems, short-term memory issues, mood stabilization. So just to recap for you guys, pretty much food sensitivities could create any type of symptom you're experiencing, from fatigue to brain fog, headaches, body aches, digestive types of problems, skin lesions, so like eczema. I know there's a lot of dermatologists out here that don't ever talk about food sensitivities when they have a patient who has issues with eczema on their skin or even other types of skin lesions. And that's really unfortunate because that could be part of the underlying why their skin keeps breaking out with these bizarre, really uncomfortable rashes. So hopefully that helps clear a little bit of air for you guys. Now, before I share with you my opinion on is food sensitivity testing actually worth it, I just want to remind you to go ahead and click that subscribe button down below. That way you never miss out on any of the future videos that I am creating for you. I am posting weekly everything to do with brain fog, gut health, overall just total body wellness. And I don't want you to miss out. So just click that button down below and make sure you subscribe right now. Okay, guys, number 3, is food sensitivity testing actually worth it? Well, if you want my honest opinion, not exactly. And that may not exactly be the answer you were expecting from me either. Food sensitivities are important, and they can very much so help somebody start feeling better. But oftentimes, they're not the sole cause of why you're feeling the way that you are. Now, what I do with my people is we will go through and we will clean up the diet, but we won't necessarily do food sensitivity testing right off the get-go, because if there is a bigger underlying problem, say your gut is not working the way that it should, if it's already irritated and we choose to do a food sensitivity test, when I get your results back, there could potentially be a ton of foods on there that really you're not sensitive to, but because your gut is inflamed and not working the right way, they are being perceived as irritants. Now, what does that mean? What that means is it gets really complicated and you may end up with a list that's overwhelming. It's like, what am I supposed to eat now? When really that isn't what caused how you're feeling in the first place. I like to try to address the overall, basically underlying cause or causes of my patient's problems first. And then down the road, if there's something that's still just kind of weird that's happening, I may actually do a food sensitivity test at that point. When that is how the order of operation goes, we may only find that there's 1 or 2 foods that you're sensitive to. I want to share with you a personal story. I have a son and he's phenomenal. Of course, it's everybody's, every mom's opinion, right? But this kiddo does have allergies. And unfortunately, he has sensitivities too. And a year ago, we were not eating as impeccably as we could. And we went right into COVID and went into lockdown. So it wasn't like we had all the conveniences either at that point in time. And his skin was breaking out with eczema. He was chronically stuffed up, couldn't breathe. And it almost sounded like he was wheezing at night. Now, I know how to handle things. And so I went through and cleaned up the diet, went back to what I know we should be doing, which is really anti-inflammatory in its root. But then I did what I do with my patients, and I did my foundation testing to figure out, okay, how are all of his organs working? Is he inflamed? Is there an infection? Are there toxin types of issues? What else is going on in his system right now that is making him so vulnerable to anything and everything under the sun? And then I was also just really curious, and I have an awesome lab that I work with that we can do food sensitivity testing just through a finger prick. I'm like, you know what? Let's just see. I'm curious if any of the things that I am giving him right now, even in this anti-inflammatory diet, I'm curious if he's reacting to any of them. And you guys, I wasn't shocked with the response, but at the same point, even knowing what I do, I'm like, oh my gosh, he was sensitive to everything. Everything I was feeding him, even when I cleaned up our diet, he was sensitive to it all. And being on this path since I was 15, I know how to handle this. I know how to change up food, but it was still overwhelming. He had 50 different foods that his body didn't want to be consuming at that point in time. So here's what I did, because that's overwhelming. And there's no way anybody can be completely compliant to that kind of list. It's everything under the sun. I had what we were already doing as our base, started feeding his body extra nutrition that his test results showed he needed. And then I took away what the bigger offenders were, what he was testing most reactive to. Lo and behold, he can eat pretty much all of the things that he tested sensitive to last year. Not because I completely took them away from him, but because I cleaned up what was going on in his body first. So really, in summary, is food sensitivity testing worth it? It can be at some place, but I don't think that that should be your first start because, like my son, you could end up with a list that is very overwhelming, and that ultimately can create more stress and anxiety around, like, okay, what in the world am I supposed to be eating now? Hopefully that helped you out today with knowing about food sensitivity testing. Now, hold that thought, don't go anywhere. If you're wondering now, like, what else did I do with my son? How do I actually figure out what's causing these symptoms that I'm suffering with? Then I want to invite you to my free 5-day health challenge. Just click the link down in the description below. In that challenge, I'm going to share with you exactly how to figure out what's causing your symptoms and then guide you of how do you start taking back control of your health. It will get right down to the root of it and you won't have to worry about this any longer. I hope to see you at the challenge. And once you click that link down in the description, you will get immediate access so you can start right away and quit wasting any more time. All right, guys, thanks so much for being here. We'll see you on the next video. Take care.